this rhyme. With Luplo, you'll have so much fun.
Yes, hello. I am James Rowlands, and today it's the WNR313. It's a very spooktacular Halloween special, and I have the pleasure to say today that I am joined by Select Match Type Pod. How you doing, guys? You all right?
Yeah, very well, thanks. How are you?
All good, all good. So there's two of you, yes? If I make that right.
There is indeed.
I am also here, although in a different location, as obeying COVID rules, because we're all about the legalities.
Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm always here by myself anyway. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourselves individually and what the podcast is about?
Yeah, so my name's Simon. I am an IT developer who's been a wrestling fan for as long as I can remember, which is depressing when you say it out loud. I've known Chris for a long time. We went to uni together, but I'll let Chris introduce himself.
Yeah, so I am Chris. As I said, we met at uni 2008. I would tell you what I do, but I'm not allowed to. I'm not a spy, but if the bosses find out that I do disclose what I do, they do not like it. So there you go.
Yes, I understand.
That's the most intriguing entry you could have possibly asked for, right, James?
I haven't. I would tell you something about myself, but I would have to obviously destroy the evidence of any of this ever happening. So, like I said, you do the Select Match Type podcast. So what's that about then?
Yeah, so we've, for just over a year now, we started making a podcast, which basically, as the name suggests, we select different match types, and then we look back at the best, the worst, the most memorable matches for each one. So we've had 4 series so far. So we had ladder matches, Survivor Series, elimination tag team matches, Royal Rumble matches, and we've just finished Hell in a Cell. Our next series is going to be a bit of a short one because we've picked us and the Twitter fan base out there have picked Buried Alive as our next match type.
That's brilliant. So there's obviously, check these guys out, anybody listening to the podcast now, and it's about coming up with kind of different ideas as well. A lot of people will either just watch the week as was in wrestling, and it's good that you've got an idea and something to keep going to, if you know what I mean. I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Just avoid the modern products as much as possible would be my advice, but that's because I've got a lot of nostalgia.
So what, I mean, before we get into it, kind of, when did you become a wrestling fan and what era is it for you guys? I mean, we'll start with Simon first.
Yeah, so my earliest memory of wrestling is watching the 95 Royal Rumble, the Shawn Michaels, skinning the cat, coming back in, eliminating the British Bulldog. I was heartbroken as a young child seeing that. But the time when I was probably most into wrestling was 2000, 2001, and then probably through till I got to university. So from 2000 till about 2008, I watched every single pay-per-view. It would often mean that when I went into school on a Monday morning that I'd be bleary-eyed and knackered. But for me, it was very much worth it. So yeah, I'd say that's my sort of favourite time in wrestling history.
I think I've been speaking to a lot of I've been speaking to a lot of Americans about this. So there's one thing you just said, and I think it's right, is I don't think they appreciate the English wrestling fan. Because like you just said, staying up until 4 o'clock in the morning and then either going to school or work the next day is a sacrifice that many of us make. America, they've got it easy, you know? So
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm going to give away the slight difference in age with me inside here and say that my earliest wrestling memory was actually the Cactus Jack Sting feud in WCW back in the day. So we're talking 89, 90, that kind of time. First memory was of Cactus Jack with a loaded plaster cast attacking Sting. I was like, yeah, this is great. So it says a lot. It says a lot about my upbringing that my parents used to let me watch WCW Worldwide. It used to be on about 1:30, 2:45 in the morning. I was say about 6 or 7 at that point. So like, yeah, watch it. Just make sure you turn it off afterwards. Go to bed. So about 4 hours sleep. Get up and go to school.
This is the thing that we used to do. You know, I remember because I started watching every week in, week out in 1999. And I was getting up and for like King of the Ring 99, 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever, just staying up and just make sure I recorded it and didn't really think much of it. And then I was telling people, and they go, why are you staying up so late? It's like, well, spoilers weren't really a thing back then, but you needed to do it. Otherwise you felt you were missing out.
Yeah, and that's why when they brought in SmackDown, it used to be on Sky One on a Saturday morning. That was perfect. The only thing was, if there was ever a chair shot or whatever, it cut away to the crowd because obviously it's early morning, so they didn't want to show that sort of violence.
You did worry about this.
You just watching the crowd for an hour.
Yeah, you'd worry your sky's broken for a second because you're like, what's happening here then? And then it cuts back. But anyway, today, like we said, it is the Spooktacular Halloween special. So on the show, we are looking at the top 10 Halloween Havoc matches in history. And first, a bit of history. As anybody doesn't know, as the name implies, is, of course, around Halloween time. And it was the annual pay-per-view for WCW from 1989, from when Chris started watching, up until about 2000. And, of course, NXT have revived the name. So we've got 12 Havocs to choose from. What we're going to do is take turns in match picks and then work out an order afterwards, I think would be the best thing to do. Now, I will say I have gone for a top 10 matches, not necessarily the best matches.
I'm glad that you said that because a couple of my picks certainly don't fall into that.
No, I've gone exactly the same. It's a Halloween season. It's not all about the treats. It's about the tricks as well.
Yeah, get ready for an egging of your ears, essentially.
Yeah. Look, if anybody's got any problem listening to this, then this is what Halloween Havoc is all about. Like you said, there's not many pay-per-views, especially with the way the pumpkin was with the WCW later on. I love the set. I love the feel of a Halloween Havoc. And I think I've been crying out for something like this for the past few years. And I think it's great NXT are actually going to have the opportunity to do it,
Yeah, the pumpkin set was definitely my the favourite of the sets from the Halloween Havoc eras. I know there was a few others like the graveyard with like the mausoleum of WCW and NWO coming out as different entrance rampways. But yeah, I think the pumpkin is the archetype Halloween Havoc set.
So there are a lot of polystyrene companies that went out of business when Halloween Havoc.
Without a doubt. So we begin. And who wants to start? Who wants to get shot first? Who wants the first match?
Go on. Oh, I'm going in. I'm going for a trick because why would you not? Okay, first pick, Halloween Havoc 1999. Anyone got that year on their list?
I have not.
I've a match of that.
If they have, it may be the fact that Vince Russo rocked up in WCW to absolutely shoot the thing down and start taking it apart piece by piece, beginning with Hulk Hogan laying down the Sting for the defense of Sting's WWE, going back, literally ownership, World Heavyweight Championship, sorry. Does anyone remember this, or has anyone watched this since?
Right, does anybody remember Power Slam back in the day, the wrestling magazine?
Power Slam 500, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
so I used
read
to
it occasionally.
I collected that kind of week in, week out, month in, month out, what it was. And I remember the headline was a Goldberg in the front of it, and they were saying, maybe WCW are turning things round. And that was after the main event of what happened at the 99 Havoc. Now, obviously, when you look back into perspective, and you think, yeah, they didn't turn things around. But at that point, I mean, I'm not the Hogan and the Sting thing, but more the Goldberg coming out afterwards. But why is this such an important moment for WCW?
It shows WCW at their worst with overbooking and the sheer scale of the backroom team wanting to throw their power around. We all know all the rumours are that with Vince Russo coming in, Hogan was set for a sabbatical after this match, and Russo was to have Sting bury him in 30 seconds. And it was Hogan refusing to play ball and go, no, I would just lay down, and that is it. It was a huge clash of egos, and that's essentially what ended up burying them all together. They just couldn't get along. They just had no idea how to work together.
I completely agree. I mean, it's one of those moments where you look at and you think, this is why WCW went the kind of way it did as well, with, like you said, the politics and just the way. I mean, the second biggest event of the year, and they're doing stuff like that,
well, the confusion around it as well is it's fine having Goldberg come out at the end when Sting opens the open challenge, but it's then a non-title match that they have no idea that it is a non-title match when they start, and then correct themselves.
This is the thing. I was going to mention the Sting versus the mystery opponent match, and they play it up as he can leave with both titles. And even when Goldberg wins in the standard 4-minute match, they play up that he has won the title. And it's only when he's talking to the ref they sow any seeds of doubts that it's not a title match.
Yeah, and that then leads into the tournament for a vacant title that should in no way be vacant in the first place.
Yeah.
But then again, vacant was WC champion more than I think Hulk Hogan during those days. So, you know. All right, so
the other thing around this, sorry, I was just going to say, the other thing around this, it definitely is indicative of WCW booking that they'd have a dusty finish, and on Nitro the next night have someone come out and say, well, actually, that didn't count. That happens so frequently at this point in time.
yeah, it's horrible kind of how WCW went. But if you give us your pick then for what you've got, and like I said, we're going to work out the top 10 at the end, so don't worry.
So I'm going to go back slightly further, and this is a match that obviously I didn't see at the time because I wasn't watching wrestling at this point, but I'm going to 1993 for an all-English affair as Lord Steven Regal takes on the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith. It was presented as a bit of a class war, so the upper class, Steven Regal with William as his manager, and they essentially set it up as a power versus technique clash of styles. But this one was 15 minutes. There was lots of catch-can stuff, lots of holds and rolls that wouldn't look out of place these days. If it was Bret Hart, it would probably be considered one of the best matches ever, but that's a different story. It ended as a lot of Steven Regal's matches did in this title reign, as a 15-minute draw. The time expires as Bulldog goes for a pin after a pile driver and a running power slam. But this one, a lot of matches where it's a lot of wrist locks and things like that can feel like they have big rest holds and that sort of thing. But this one was just action throughout. I can't recommend it enough if you haven't seen this one.
Right out, and of course, for the WNR, we had the William Regal special earlier in the year where we actually watched this match as well. And not many people know that Bulldog and Regal actually had that match at that time. And it's like talk about the British style that we've become accustomed to now was definitely on show there. I didn't mind it, as a heel champion for a time limit makes sense because doesn't take anything away from the face end, does it?
No, exactly. And maybe they overused it slightly because Regal was champion for, I think it was around a year. And he had lots and lots of 15-minute draws. It wasn't like he was clinging, obviously, if it wasn't a time limit draw, he'd have lost the title, but he was fairly dominant throughout the match as you'd expect as the heel. But the other thing I just wanted to mention about this is how it reminds you how good Steven or William Regal was as a heel. Just little things like every time he goes for a pin, he puts his elbow across the nose of Bulldog here. Just little touches like that it's a good job that he's involved with NXT because the things that he can add around the ring psychology and that sort of thing are immense.
Well, the little flourishes, even the hand behind the back that he does, and he's always kind of in that position of going. That match is fantastic. But we haven't gone for the same match yet, and we haven't as we go around because my pick is from 1989, and it's Lex Luger versus Brian Pillman. And it's the first Halloween Havoc that took place in 89 while WCW was under the NWA banner. The main event was actually the Thunderdome, which was a precursor to the Hell in a Cell, Sting and Ric Flair teaming up to beat Terry Funk and Great Muta. But the match I think WCW hit out of the park with was the United States Championship match. The clash pitted the determined underdog Pillman against the brash champion Luger. The two men put on a show in front of an electric Philadelphia crowd. Pillman's attempt to use his pace was cut off by Luger, whose strength and size advantage suited his heelish performance. Pillman's speed was used against him as Luger hit the stun gun for the 3 count. Luger at this point seemingly had the world at his feet, and Brian Pillman was this kind of young and spunky underdog, so to speak. And the style of these two, you wouldn't think of Brian Pillman like work, but going back and watching it looks like Luger is actually quite a good worker, and that's why you know it's a good match.
Well, yeah, as you say, Luger this time was an absolute poster boy for what you wanted your wrestling superstars to be. He was huge. He had that cut physique. You could put him on merchandise that would sell. He made, as I say, because he had that cocky look and size to him, he made a perfect heel. And yeah, Brian Pillman going up against him as the far better technical wrestler, the plucky little underdog there, as you're saying, and nearly did it. It's always nice. We want that believability as much as it's nice just have Pillman as a better wrestler come in and beat Luger. To have him go toe to toe and just miss out. Yeah, I'm all over that.
Good. All right, Chris, what's your next choice then?
Right, okay, so this may feature on some of the worst lists for matches that you guys have. The sheer bonkersness of it, I absolutely love. It's the 1991 Chamber of Horrors match.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Did we have it on our hate? Did we have it on our bad file or our good file?
I'll tell you, that it is one of the worst matches in Halloween history, but it is one of my favourite ones because you can't have a great match without this to show you it can go wrong, you know?
Yeah, so just breaking down. So we had the Steiner Brothers, El Gigante and Sting against Vader, Abdullah the Butcher, Cactus Jack, and a pre-Razor Ramon Scott Hall as the Diamond stood. They were in a cage, various weapons hanging from there. During the match, we had another cage lower down in the middle with an electric chair that one of the opponents had to be strapped into and the switch thrown to ensure the victory. And it's exactly as bonkers as it sounds. And it just, you can say how it goes wrong and show how it doesn't work. But it's just blood everywhere. There are just chair shots. There are kendo sticks smashed over people's heads. They're wondering why little bits of wood are suddenly in the ring because someone has actually just smashed a stick bleeding out. Everyone's bleeding. Everyone's falling around. And the endings looks absolutely ridiculous with fireworks going off as Abdullah the Butcher gets electrocuted and then gets back up.
But that's what you want. You want to finish a match with a good execution. You know, that's what I've always said throughout my years. I always thought to myself, you know, but even like Cactus Jack bringing a chainsaw with him and not using it was just like you're going, okay, all these little things. The first person camera worn by the referee was just horrible.
Say, let's not forget the referee.
Referee. I mean, come on, it's brilliant. You know, I mean, like you said, this for me, if a Halloween show, then it needs to have matches like this, just to because it is just so ridiculous. You know,
that's it. You get the whole point of wrestling is to have fun. Let's face it. We don't as much as we want to sit there and watch great wrestlers. You don't want 8 matches of just technical wrestling.
I was going to say it doesn't sound like Abdullah had much fun, but he got back up, so it's fine.
He gets hit Cactus Jack in the mouth after he executes him. It's fine. He gets his revenge. That's even Stevens now.
Well, it's even like you said, the thing comes down and Cactus has to like pull it up to pull it back down again, and you're just like, oh, bless him, you know, bless him. All right, we'll move on.
I don't think I've ever actually seen the. I was just going to say, I don't think I've ever actually seen all of the match all the way through, but I've just seen little clips like Cactus Jack picking it up, then putting it down. Yeah, just the little comedy bits of like a You've Been Framed episode of Halloween.
I'll tell you what sums it up best. The fact that when he throws the switch, it's in the wrong position, or they've labelled the off on the wrong side. So he has to switch it off for it to go on.
It's a safety feature of all electric turns.
Yeah. It's like the ring catches fire and everything. You're going, oh, this is just going to end terribly for everybody. But, you know. Oh, God. Right. Anyway, Simon, your next pick, please.
Okay, I'm going to go more on the good scale rather than the questionable. I'm going to go to 1997. Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio. Eddie Guerrero putting the title on the line versus Rey's mask. Again, this one feels like it would fit in unbelievably well today. For anyone that's not listened to our episodes on Rey Mysterio versus Eddie for the custody of Dominic, we talked about how good the springboard and the innovation and all of that was in that match. As ridiculous it is for the custody of a child to be in a ladder match, but that's a separate argument, I suppose. But this one was great. There were so many springboards. Eddie looking like a beast. People talked about in the mid-2000s how he was getting pretty big, but he is a large cruiserweight at this point in time. And Eddie dominates here. There's things like hits a pump handle slam into a backbreaker. It's a power bomb that I was convinced was the end of the match because it looks like Rey, his head completely bounces off the mat. And yeah, this one just looked completely modern, even though it's 23 years old now. There was a move that I'm honestly convinced that I've never seen before, and I'm not sure I understand the physics of it, which was Rey going for the flip out of the ring, catching Eddie, and then hitting a head scissors. Like the flexibility to be able to do that in midair after jumping from the ring is ridiculous. There was also Bobby the Brain on commentary, and he had a great line, which normally we like to point out Bobby the Brain's great work on commentary. So Eddie slides into the post, going for the Tree of Woe, and Heenan points out that it's not the slide that hurts, it's the quick stop.
Heenan at this time, though, was perfect. But, I mean, when you think of a WCW match, in my eyes, this is the one. And I think the reason why it is so good over time is because there is not one misstep. Everything is just perfect, cohesive. They're almost like a part of each other, the way they tell the story. And
exactly.
It's like lightning in a bottle. And they tried it at WrestleMania 21 again. And don't get me wrong, it was a good match. And like you said, that feud afterwards. But it never lived up to that point. And even in WCW afterwards, because like I said, it was lightning in the bottle. Mysterio, the way he dressed, the way he looked at that point in time. Eddie was fantastic at that point. Anybody that thinks Eddie made it when he got to WWE needs to go back and see his WCW work as well. It is one of my, if not my favourite match from a Halloween Havoc,
Yeah. I like you say, there's so much, because of the style and all the springboards and high-flying stuff, there's a hell of a lot that could go wrong at any point. And even at the end, so Eddie goes for a crucifix powerbomb off the top rope, which gets reversed into a hurricanrana. There's so many moving parts in that move, so there's the potential for it to go horribly wrong. You mentioned as well that what Rey's wearing, so I did want to mention the fact that he's wearing a purple Riddler costume, which Rollins brought back recently. As a bit of a troll was the...
Sorry, I don't want to correct you. He's not. He is honouring the previous year's superhero film, The Phantom, starring Billy Zane.
Okay.
I don't want to get involved in anything here. Yeah, I don't want to get whatever it started. No, but like you said, the outfit in itself is still iconic, let alone with the match and let alone that anything happens. And I think, like I said, if we didn't have this on the top 10 list, then I think, we just need to quit watching wrestling, basically.
Yeah.
Eddie, as you say, I mean, Eddie's heel work, ripping the mask off, absolutely brilliant. He's pretty much torn it off when he's got him in the various rest holds. The thing that really made me laugh during on the commentary was when they went, so Rey's put his mask on the line 8 times or something like that. This is the 9th one. He's won the previous 8. It's like there's not a great deal of drama there.
But he would go on to lose the mask not long after, a couple of years after this. It's so weird watching Rey Mysterio matches where he's coming out with the horns and not wearing a mask.
Well, you just wonder why that 14-year-old boy has got to the ring. That's what I always thought. I thought, well, where's his mum? He's obviously... apparently he wanted him to drop the mask. If Eric Bischoff is correct. Hey, I don't know. They wanted him to drop the mask and basically refused, and he's saying my heritage and what it meant to me. But he still did it, and like I said, it ruined the character because of what Rey Mysterio was all about.
Yeah. It's not like Bischoff to inflate what happened or conflate facts with anything else.
Exactly. If you don't, what he's saying. Anyway, talk about cruiserweights. Let's go back the previous year's event to 1996, and this was the first Halloween Havoc of the NWO era. Of course, you can forget an event with Hogan taking on Macho Man Randy Savage, but the cruiserweight title match between Dean Malenko and Rey Mysterio, for me, is one of the top matches from Havoc. Not just because, obviously, Eddie and Ray is the more remembered match, but I think Malenko is another guy who, in WCW as the Iceman during that time, was just so consistent and so good. And the feuds he had with Chris Jericho and Mysterio, he was kind of so great. It doesn't really get mentioned about that. When he went to WWE, nothing really happened with him. But I feel like they missed a trick with Malenko. Yes, maybe he didn't have a personality, but that guy was a hell of a worker. And the match that these two had, the near 20-minute match, was just brilliant,
They could put him over far better now, having no personality, than they could back then. That's the issue. If you had it now, you'd sell an entire gimmick on the fact he just doesn't bother talking to anyone, or he's dull as fuck. So you'd sell, that'd be fine. You'd have T-shirts with his face and dull written across it, and they'd be flying off the shelves.
But I think the Iceman
one
gimmick...
time they did try and give him the one time they did try and give him personality. Do you remember when he was trying to woo Lita into a date, and he just ended up jobbing to her?
Well, he had his socks on and everything, and they tried to make the James Bond-esque entrance for him. And I thought the Iceman gimmick was perfect. Take your time. You don't have to get flustered, whether it was. Plus, they like to talk about a guy who had, knew over 1,000 wrestling moves. I think this guy kind of gets forgotten about, and it just shows you how important the cruiserweight division was. Yes, they had these great, NWO angles, but it was these matches that were keeping people entertained in the undercard.
Yeah. The other thing just about Dean Malenko, this is not really to do with his in-ring ability, but his dad was called Boris Malenko, but that was only an in-ring thing. I really like the fact that he kept the heritage of Malenko going, even though it's a completely made-up name. That's just a nice little touch, I think.
Yeah, well, not everybody can be called Neville, like Gary and Phil.
Yeah. He's a good-looking lad, he's a good-looking guy like his sons.
All right, so now I think, if I've not lost count, it's Chris's choice now.
Yeah, it's me again. So
hi, Chris.
Still here, right? so we're going back to the well with our tricks this time. And who remembers what is clearly the worst Halloween Havoc 2000? Anyone remember what the main event was for Halloween Havoc 2000?
Oh God!
The title match was Steiner Booker T.
No, my main
event was also
Chronic Goldberg.
I was about to say, yeah, you would...
Goldberg Chronic, wasn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, I was about to say you would believe that Booker T versus Scott Steiner for the championship would be your main event match, but no, we will have a seemingly concussed Goldberg only cleared to wrestle after Chronic had come to the ring and declared themselves the winner, come out and stumble through a 4-minute 2-on-1 handicap match.
But the thing is, at this time as well, Chronic were actually quite over as a tag team in WCW. One of the few things that were actually working, and then they just put them in that match with Goldberg and completely destroyed their legitimacy. But that is just, we talked about earlier WCW in 1999 being bad. Like I said, 2000 takes a biscuit, without a shadow of a doubt.
The weird thing was, though, they actually had some decent guys further down the card. So one match that I was going to mention was the just as an out-of-the-box one, just a really good sort of show opener, which was the same night. You had the Boogie Nights, Jindrak and O'Hare against the Filthy Animals for the tag titles. And that match was basically highlighting everything that was good about WCW. So the style there was amazing. It was so quick-paced. But then they were buried at the bottom of the card for guys like Chronic, who were just jacked up guys that couldn't wrestle, essentially.
Can't wait to see the rest of Chris's list. He's got Halloween Havoc 99 and 2000 and Chamber of Horrors. So that will be very interesting.
There's equal great stuff and absolute dross to come from my list, to be honest.
All right, Simon, you're up next then.
My next match certainly does not fall in the good pile. It's widely considered to be one of the worst matches of all time. And it's from 1998. And how can we possibly talk about Halloween Havoc without the match of the decade as it was billed? Hogan versus Warrior 2. The rematch of the WrestleMania 6 title versus title showdown, the legendary showdown. So Hogan, obviously, at this point in the NWO, Ultimate Warrior had the same gimmick as he'd had all those years earlier, the same energy, the same face paint, the same ability to gas himself out from running on the way to the ring. And this one is an absolute shit show from start to finish. Within the first 5 minutes, there's a rest hold because both of them are knackered. There's Hogan bringing out the NWO after one of the worst ref shots you've ever seen. Giant then somehow missing Warrior, even though he is still stood where he was without actually moving. There's Hogan attempting to blind Warrior by throwing fire into his face, which he manages to botch and burn his own tash and eyebrows. But yeah, it was just awful from start to finish. And then as the sort of improvised finish, because of the botch job with the fire being thrown into his eyes, Horace Hogan, who I'd forgotten existed before I was revisiting this, to be honest, comes in and hits the worst chair shot on Warrior that you've ever seen. It was slow, it was dull. I'm not necessarily convinced it was because of a lack of effort, particularly from Warrior. It was just that it was two tired old men that had way too much power to book themselves, which I guess in a nutshell was the problem with WCW towards the end.
Yeah, but at least Hogan got his win back. So, I mean...
Well, yeah.
We completely missed the fact that they tried to set the Warrior on fire after the match finished.
They did, yeah. They come in, put lighter fluid all over him, and nothing happens. He just sniffs himself.
But I think that the build-up to the match is equally as bad.
Happen to a nicer guy.
But the build-up with him, like, Hogan can see him in the mirror, and then the trapdoor, which injures British Bulldog, where Warrior's majestically coming through. It's just, it built up to a point, and you're going, not going to be a good match. And in fairness, they delivered that. So I think all credit in that way.
They met expectations, so yeah.
I mean, anyone who listens to us knows that we love Dave Meltzer's scores as well. He gave this a -5 stars.
Wow. Well, like you said,
low.
it wasn't. They didn't manage to kind of do anything. They had previous attempts, and like I said, with Horace getting involved, just everything did go wrong. And then, of course, with people watching the pay-per-view at home, it cutting out before it got to its main event of Goldberg and DDP as well. So you've got that match.
Which was actually a really good Halloween Havoc match, but no one remembers it because of this shit show. Yeah. There is the argument that if the show hadn't have been cut off, then this match wouldn't be as infamous as it is, because the main event would have sort of glossed over it slightly. I'm not sure if that's quite the case, but it certainly doesn't help, does it?
No, without a doubt, you know. And I think if you look at that and you think that is a terrible match, like I said, possibly the worst in Halloween Havoc history. But Hulk Hogan, or Hollywood Hogan, has had a few terrible matches as well. And my pick up next is Halloween Havoc 1995. And it is Hulk Hogan versus the Giant in Ireland. I mean, this was everything that was... To be fair, I love WWE 1995 now, because if you don't take it seriously, you can have such a laugh with how they're building the characters and what they do. And this match in itself, with the Dungeon of Doom trying to beat Hogan, even though the fans were already turning against Hogan, not only did we have the heavyweight title match, but we might not have got to that point because we had the sumo truck match earlier in the night when they were battling the sumo trucks and fell from the building. Repeatedly about 200 feet, and managed to dust himself off for the main event whilst changing as well. He changed before he actually got to the match, so it wasn't too bad. And then we just had this terrible match with the Giant in his first match using the choke slam, Hogan ruining that and getting out of it. And then it's just, you've got these awful submissions with the Giant, and then he puts him in the bear hug. And then we have probably one of the greatest calls in professional wrestling, because we've got the Yeti coming through, and he comes out. And
he
then,
must be 7'8".
He and then what looked like I look. I don't want to offend anybody for what these two guys were doing. You know, to Hogan, they looked like they were enjoying it. There's no doubt about it. But there's a time and place for it, you know. And they basically squashed him. Commentators going crazy. And then in all this, Jimmy Hart has turned on Hogan as well. And I think we forget about that just because of everything that is going on. It was a terrible, terrible match. But again, it is one of the top matches when you look at where it was from 1995 to 1996 for the NWO, how Hogan kind of not reinvented, but saved himself. Because at this point in time, it was going down with Hulkamania. And then that heel turn with the NWO, whole freshness to it. And I think that's why it deserves to be looked at as this. If the NWO didn't come around, this is what WCW would have been.
Yeah, I like the way that the commentary team in the match also play up the fact that they've never seen Hogan in black. So just little things like that. Like I don't know if I'm giving too much credit to the creative team in WCW, but it seems like they were sowing seeds sort of constantly through it. You mentioned the sumo monster truck match. Who thought that was a good idea? Who wanted to see that? I'm a wrestling fan, therefore I'm going to like monster trucks.
Yeah, they did it all the time. Do you not remember Dustin Rhodes wrestling the trucker dude in the back of in a cage on the back of a truck, going up and down an airport runway?
No, I mean, WCW, they're trying things out, aren't they? And I think that's what other companies aren't doing, where they try different gimmicks, different type matches. They might not be the best, but at least they're trying something, and it's not just the same as we've seen in WWE or F as it was all the time. Yeah,
and at least they don't have Hell in a Cell style pay-per-views where we'll just make random matches that, because of the time of year, will make it a death feud, essentially.
Yeah, all right, so we'll move on then, and Chris, it is your fourth choice.
Super, right. So what you were just saying about WCW trying stuff actually feeds nicely in to my pick for my fourth one. We're going back to 1993 and the Vader Cactus Jack Texas Death Match. So essentially what we've got here is a last man standing match between the two, non-title match, because you don't need titles when you just feuding and Cactus Jack just wants to hurt someone. What's the point of doing something stupid like putting the title in the way? So we have some of the stiffest punches, chair shots. We've got a lot of great outside the ring work on the runway that WCW always loved to use from the down the aisle, into the crowd, through the barriers, plenty of both bleeding. It's everything you want from a last man standing match, apart from their bizarre rules, which gives them a 30-second rest break before we actually start the last man standing 10 count.
That was my only problem with the match. It was slightly overly complicated, but it's simple enough rules. But most of the time, when there was a pin, by the time that it got up to 30, they were already up. So it just didn't seem to add much to the match other than prolong it slightly.
I quite like it when they go, give yourself 30 seconds, guys. Just take your time. Just have a little bit of recovery. Be able to jump back into it. What I liked about the match, though, was the fact of with Last Man Standing, you might see a lot of stunts. But like I said, the Vader was just hitting Cactus with just everything he had. And I think Vader's strikes look brutal anyway. But Cactus was saying, lay it in me. I want it to look as good as possible, which is just crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, especially because the whole feud started where Vader power bombed Cactus Jack onto the concrete where Harley Race had pulled the mat up, and he got a a shoot concussion, and that was so Vader working stiff is essentially how the feud started. But they were more than happy to carry it on that way.
Well, let's not forget they moved when Cactus did get the injury, and they did these Lost in Cleveland vignettes of him kind of
the vignettes. Yeah.
Oh God! And you're just going, no, just put the two guys in the ring. And I think even in Mick Foley's book, he talks about that feud and how the commentators didn't play up what it could have been in a certain way. And I think these two just had tremendous chemistry as well. I think it's a fantastic match.
Well, Vader's criminally underrated, let's face it. When you got a 400-pound guy hitting a moonsault off the top rope, then he was, if it hadn't been for Shawn Michaels, maybe he would have had a much bigger WWE Vader push.
I'm going to disagree, Chris. I don't really like Vader. Although it's incredible that he can do a moonsault, I think he's overrated because he doesn't do anything other than kicks, punches, and a Vader bomb.
No, but the thing is about this, I don't want to get involved in whatever you two guys got on. But
Lover's tiff.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, the thing is with Vader, for me, is like, a guy 400-pound moonsault, but it's like a Brock Lesnar character. Why does Brock Lesnar work in certain ways? Is because he's tough. He's been there. He's done that. He's legitimate. And I think with Vader, that kind of legitimacy, especially during this time, and like you said, after his move to WWF, he was just a bad motherfucker. There was nothing about it. It wasn't the fact of he just came out. He was like, "You're gonna get hurt, and he's gonna end your career." He did it. He broke, a guy's back doing a powerbomb with what he did to Cactus, and it was just his reputation of, like, oh, he's legitimate. And I think that's what I liked about the Vader character as much as the kind of Bam Bam Bigelow, as you say, as a big guy doing these impressive moves. It was WWF missed a trick. Like I said, if he'd have come in with Shawn Michaels and just battered him, you'd have gone, this is a bad dude.
What you're really saying is, sorry, go on.
No. What I'm really saying is Shawn Michaels to blame. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, what you're really saying is there needed to be a Vader and New Jack feud to see who the legitimate toughest man in wrestling was.
God, that would have been, wow.
Throw Haku into the mix as well, just to really turn up the death count.
I always remember this Jake the Snake comment that he made, and he said that if he was 50 feet away from Haku in a tank with a gun, he'd shoot himself in the head. And I always thought that's how tough Haku is,
Yeah. The story about the eye popping out is the one that always springs to mind.
It's brilliant. All right, Simon, give us your next pick then.
Next one, again, it's a bit of a, not a particularly well-known match because it's one of the early ones on the card, but it's 1998. I've gone for Raven versus Chris Jericho. So Raven had come across to WCW from ECW, set up the Flock, which had been disbanded. They were all prospering, but Raven had found himself on a bit of a losing streak. He comes out and plays up the fact that he wasn't even supposed to be here, so he's leaving. And then Jericho basically responds by baiting him into it, by calling him a loser, which is strong words. I don't know how you would ever walk away from that. I did notice something really weird. So Jericho obviously wasn't far off moving from WWF to WWF, here. And what was really odd was that both guys kept their ring music when they moved across to WWF, which was not something you see particularly often.
No, I think with the music, it was.
Or maybe it's been played over the top. Because I watched it on the network.
Yeah, no, I originally thought that, and then it wasn't, because obviously the Y2J Bradley Walls Down was the character once he went. I think they just did it generically with that. I think they've changed a couple, because I didn't know Hogan came out to the Voodoo Child until he made his first appearance in WWE, like 2003 or 2002 when they paid the rights.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, I didn't. I just thought it was the NWO theme. So they do play tricks on you like that.
Yeah, well, they do a much better job here than they've done in other examples. So when you've rewatched like WrestleMania 17 and the Undertaker's supposed to come out to roll in, but they completely like botch the crowd noise that should be there and the noise from the motorbike. So they actually do a decent job of mixing that together. So good job, WWE. Not something you hear every day. But this one's really good. It's, again, quite a modern style with two guys that were probably Jericho was about to become sort of the megastar in WCW before he moved across to WWF. Raven, I always felt was a huge star in ECW. The stuff that he did around the Sandman and the Sandman's son. He obviously got the ring psychology and things, but I always felt that he was criminally wasted in WWE. But this one is really good. There's some big power moves. So Raven hits a pop-up powerbomb, sends Jericho into the exponent's turnbuckle, and then hits the sort of hanging clothesline that he was famous for. There's loads of suplexes, loads of reverses. Again, another Bobby the Brain commentary line. So Jericho goes for the Lion Tamer, what would go on to become the Was Jericho, and Raven's clawing his way towards the rope, and Bobby says that's the longest 6 inches of his so I'll go over that again. That's the longest 6 inches of his life. Which, little things like that, just dropping in dad jokes on commentary there. And then to end it, so Raven goes for the Raven effect DDT, gets reversed into the Lion Tamer, and Raven taps immediately, which they're playing up is because he's on this losing streak and he's low on confidence and doesn't really have it anymore. But yeah, if you've not seen this one, it's a really good opener to 1998.
Without a doubt. And you know, two young guys there wanting to make an impact. And we go to Halloween Havoc 1994. And the main event, of course, these two young guys, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan. You know what these are like. Usually when a match with these two guys, I'm panicking. But Ric Flair, for some reason, especially in the main event of Halloween Havoc, was on form. And when Flair was good, I mean, yeah, again, I'm not saying Ric Flair is overrated, because that would be a pipe bomb of all pipe bombs. But I feel, especially a style where he's bumping around for making him look good, he made Hogan look like $1 million. And I think when you chuck in the fact that it was a steel cage match, the loser had to retire or, you know, go on a leave of absence, so to speak. You had all these celebrities that were there as well, and Mr. T. You know, it kind of worked out where Flair was at his best. Hogan, who had just joined in July, was still getting good reactions. And then it was kind of after this where it went downhill. But I think this was WWE's probably most profitable pay-per-view until the NWO came around as well. And I think when you look back on it now, incredibly, the match still holds up. And for a Hogan-Flair match during this time, I think that's why it's one of the better matches.
Yeah, you mentioned, just to say that the biggest pipe bomb of all time, saying Ric Flair was overrated. I once said on our podcast that Bret Hart was overrated, so it could be worse.
You wash your mouth out, sir. How dare you? But this is the thing with Flair and Bret. It was, again, actually, I don't want to start saying, because then we're going to just get hate mail all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
There is certain wrestlers that you just feel it's not one note is not the right word, but I know I can feel your pain now. I can feel your pain. All right, Chris, what is your matches each, and then we'll work out what the top 10 is. I think that's the best one. What's your last match then?
Right. Okay. So I've actually pulled 10 matches all together because, you know what? I just do a top 10. I hear top 10 and I do a top 10. So I'm torn whether to go for a great match or a truly awful one.
Well,
how do we feel? Are we having bad matches yet?
Well, give us both and then we'll make the decision.
Okay, right. So, good. The match between Savage and DDP. Mm-hmm. Or we have Sting versus Jeff Jarrett.
Wow, I don't know about you, but I want Sting versus JEFFJARRETT. That's what I want.
Right. Then I completely do not blame you, because this was an odd one to say the least. So 2000, this one is from, again, the worst Halloween Havoc pay-per-view of them all. And the way this feud even comes about is not great. This is based on Jeff Jarrett claiming that Sting doesn't have the heart anymore to compete. And that is it. That is what our feud is based on. So we have Jarrett and Sting come out, and then essentially we have Jarrett standing in the ring or lounging around ringside while various people dressed up as Stings from the past come to the ring, get death dropped, and then we carry on with the match with Jarrett. So we have the 89 debut classic Sting, we have the 90 championship winning Sting, Wolfpack Sting, we have the Crow not only from rings from the aisle, also from the rafters, and then we have one that comes up from underneath the ring as well. So we have a lot of Stings going on. And at no point did they go, right, let's see if we can get people who look kind of like Sting, and we'll just do the hair and the makeup right. They have people with the wrong haircut. They have badly fitted wigs. And the whole match finishes with Double J smashing Sting over the head with a guitar for the win. And that's it. And, oh, dear God, just no.
That's a bad match. Bad match. Go away. You know what you've done. That's quite an incredible list of 5 matches. What else, Chris, was on your list of matches that we didn't get to?
I think we covered a few of them. So I had Pillman, Luger. I had the Mysterio Guerrero match there as well. Just scrolling through my list. Hollywood Hogan Warrior. Yeah, we've had that one. Obviously, just Sting, and then Goldberg. Done that. Oh, but Bagwell, David Flair, First Blood DNA match. A prime example of WCW overbooking. Hey, Stacy Keibler rejects David Flair at the altar. She's pregnant with someone else's kid. Is it Buff Bagwell? Are we going to go through the courts? No, they're going to wrestle to give a DNA sample via First Blood.
Again, but you've got to admit, that is, no one ever done that, did they? You know?
The problem with this one as well is we don't even have David Flair win. We have Buff Bagwell win, and then Luger come down to celebrate it with him, and then just punch him in the face and bust his mouth open. So Flair gets the sample that way.
It's crazy when you consider how bad they were during this time. It's just something else. It's just, I keep saying ridiculous, but it is just crazy when you think the shit that they've had at Halloween Havoc this past 10 years. All right, so
you thought you were going to look at some good matches here.
I'm looking at my list. I'm looking at my list and thinking, do you know what? I thought I had a couple of bad ones on, but it's not that bad actually. No,
not compared with Chris's list, anyway.
No, I bow down to Chris's shit list. I mean, that is that's pulling out of the.
We completely subscribe to the fact that wrestling is great when it's either brilliant or truly awful.
Yeah,
Chris, you're a man that gave the 4 Doinks Survivor Series team 3 stars last year. So
I love that match. I'm not taking that back.
That's a fantastic match. I mean, that's literally like you got it. But this is the thing, like I said, with wrestling, you either want the kind of serious, hard-hitting matches and the kind of storytelling, or you want to have, and even if the commentators are like Bobby Heenan does, he's winking at you whilst you're going along with this. And I think that's what's missing from today's product, especially on Raw, when there's like a poisoning angle and they're being deadly serious rather than saying, well, maybe people can have a little bit of a laugh with this. And I think when you look at these matches, they took them deadly seriously, but ended up hilarious, and I think that's what helps them out.
Yeah, completely agree. Okay, my next match then, 1991. 2 guys you've probably heard of before. So TV title, we've got Stunning Steve versus the Natural Dustin Rhodes. It's basically the Attitude Era. What's not to like? So both guys were quite young, a lot younger than they would obviously go on to be. That's how time generally works. But these guys have an all-out brawl. We talked already about how 15-minute time limits were used quite a lot in WCW, and this is a good example of where it fits in well. Again, there is the argument that it's overused through the time in WCW, but I thought this one was a good example. So we get blood from Austin as Dustin Rhodes opens him up. The bionic elbow triggering a string of offense from Dustin and a big flying clothesline, and then he goes for the cover, cover, but just as he's about to win, the timer expires just as the ref was about to count for 3. These guys would obviously go on to bigger things as they moved across. And I guess this is one of the main sort of things that people argue about AEW, that they just steal WWF stars. But look at what can happen if you do take another company star and actually make a big deal of him, because obviously WWF capitalized on taking Steve Austin from WCW.
Yeah, but they also signed Vader and Mark Mero in the early 1996. So, I mean, you got to get, like I said, give and take with who actually goes on to become these megastars and who kind of drops off as well. It's really interesting looking back and thinking, oh, maybe they could have done a little bit more of him or a little bit with that. And like I said, at this time, I don't think anybody would have known these are the two guys that are going to have the kind of career that they did, which, you know, is really, really interesting. Because, like I said, a lot of people would just, with WWE stuff, and if it happened in WWE, if they tell you about it, that's fine. But then they won't realise, like we talked about with Regal and Bulldog having a match, or even with Rhodes and Austin before they became these big gimmicks. It's definitely something worthwhile to go back and check out and watch, because you'll learn more about them as well.
Yeah, and the style that Austin wrestles, you can see obviously the similarities in what he'd go on to, but post-injury, Austin is a very different wrestler to the one before he broke his neck.
Yeah, I would completely agree. And a lot of people, we were talking about Bret and Ric Flair earlier, people go, overrated and go, well, no, yeah, he's brawling style, but that was due to the fact that he broke his neck and continued afterwards. And if you look at, like you said, the stunning Steve Austin and the way he was technical in the ring, there's no doubt he was a fantastic worker. You just need to watch it, you know?
But maybe it was all the hair. Like, it's almost Homer-like when he takes snake hair and becomes a completely different character.
Was there anything else on your list that we...
No, I've mentioned a couple of others from other Halloween Havoc. So there was the triple threat match at 2000 for the tag titles. I was actually going to mention, I know you said about the Giant versus Hogan, but I was just going to focus on the Monster Truck Sumo match, because that was confusing enough for me to realise that there was another one. And then also the 99 Sting versus the mystery opponent, where Goldberg squashes him in 4 and a bit minutes. But now I think we've covered a decent amount of matches from there.
Yeah, I think that. I mean, I've got Austin and Steve Williams versus Rhodes and Wyndham from Havoc. Also DDP and Goldberg. But I think my last choice will be the Steiners versus the Nasties, because the term slobber knocker was coined for watching this match. 4 guys not ashamed to lay it out and go out for 15 minutes as they throw bombs. It was such a fun bout. It was a cohesive structure. It led to a breakneck, frantic finish that makes you hope that one person won't be seriously injured. This match is a bit like a rickety roller coaster at this fair. It may not be the safest thing in the world, but it provides one hell of a ride. So that will be my last pick.
It's crazy to look at Scott Steiner back then compared to what he'd be in like 2000, the genetic freak with his problems with maths and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I 237% agree with you. I really do. I think, you know, when you look at the Steiners and what they were, fantastic team. And the Nasty Boys, I mean, I've hated the Nasty Boys for a very long time, but I have to give the devil his due with that match there. All right, so in front of me, I have got 15 matches. They're quite different, not going to lie.
Variety is the spice of life.
I'm not going to lie. Chris's list is Hogan and Sting, the Chamber of Horrors, Goldberg versus Chronic, Vader versus Jack, and Jarrett versus Sting. If that was a pay-per-view, you'd probably avoid it. I'm not going to lie at this moment in time. Then Simon's picks were Bulldog Regal, Eddie Ray, Warrior Hogan, Raven Jericho, Rhodes, and Austin. Some really good choices there.
I assume Hogan would book himself as the main event, so let's just put that.
Yeah, sorry, I should. Yeah. And then we've got on my list Pillman versus Luger, Malenko versus Mysterio, Giant versus Hogan, Hogan versus Flair, and the Steiners versus Nasties. So there's the 15. So, I mean, we talk about top matches of all time. Yes, we've had a laugh and a joke. But what is the greatest Halloween Havoc match of all time?
I'm going to put forward Ray versus Eddie from '97.
I'm going to agree with you because I had that as number one on my list also.
I will also agree with everything. We're all getting along. That is going to be number one on our list. Like I said, the other 10 are going to be quite difficult to work out. When we think about it,
shall we work out which ones to get rid of?
I think that's an excellent idea.
Are you getting rid of my five?
Right, let's get rid of Chris's choices. And then we'll move on with what we got. All right, so do we want Hogan and Sting's left in there?
No, I want Vader Cactus Jack deserves to be in there.
I think Vader Cactus Jack is up there as well. I think that would be my top three. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, happy to say that it was a bloody brutal battle.
Vader v Cactus can go there. What else we've got? Steiners versus Nasties. I don't think would make the list. I'll get rid of one of my own there. I think that's fair enough to say.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say Hogan versus Warrior 2 wasn't one of the 10 greatest matches.
Yeah, but it's one of those matches that it shows it should be a lesson. You know, if you don't learn from history, you're doomed to repeat it. WWE needs to watch these events and what it looks like when they bring out these old, tired acts who have been going for years and years and years, and they put on terrible matches and it turns the fans away and you lose the audience. How they have not looked at this and gone, oh, that's what we're doing. It's just crazy. But I'll take that. That can be crossed off the list because maybe it wasn't the greatest one. I think Vader Jack makes the list. I don't think the Chamber of Horrors, would they get on the list?
As an exhibition in just how bonkers this pay-per-view can go, I feel it deserves it.
I think that's fair. I think Chamber of Horrors can go in there. We won't work out.
It certainly springs to mind when you think of Halloween Havoc, doesn't it?
I think without a doubt, you know. And I'm gonna. What one should I stick in there? I'm thinking either Hogan with Flair or Giant versus Hogan. I'll definitely want a Hogan match in there, but I'm not sure. I think I've got to put the actual good match, you know.
Out of those two, I'd go for Flair rather than the Giant.
Yeah. I'll get rid of.
Controversial, Ric Flair being a better wrestler than the Big Show, but.
Well, you say that.
He was Andre the Giant's son at that point in time, of course, as well.
I know. Why do people think that? Oh, I mean, you know, like when you've got stuff like that, why didn't it work? All right, what other matches should we get rid of then? We got rid of Giant Hogan. Again, I don't want to pick on Chris, but we've got.
No, it's fine. There are a lot of matches I picked just for how awful they were.
I think there's a couple I've crossed off. I'm not going to lie to you. Yeah, Goldberg v Chronic, and I think Jarrett v Sting don't make the list. I've got to make sure we've actually got 10, to be fair, because otherwise.
We're just going to go with Eddie versus Ray and Cactus versus David.
They're our favourite matches anyway.
Yeah.
What about Pillman Luger deserves to be in there?
There you go. That's what I say. Pillman Luger. I would agree with that. That should definitely be on there. We've got Flair Hogan. We've got the Chamber of Horrors. That's made it through. Raven versus Jericho. Do you think that makes the list?
How many more do we need to get rid of?
I have no idea at this moment in time. I'm just crossing them out as I go.
Well, out of that and Steven Regal versus Davey Boy, that one definitely, the Regal versus Bulldog one definitely deserves to be if we're picking out of those two. So let's make sure that one's in first.
Hang on a minute. Right, so let me just work this out. Right, so we've got rid of 3 on Chris's list. So we need to get rid of another 2. Warrior Hogan went.
So you got rid of Warrior Wogan. Terry Wogan's again.
Oh, Terry Wogan, I'm here. That's the worst Terry Wogan impersonation I've ever done, but not that I had a good one. We've got, right, we'll keep that one in there. We'll get rid of Giant Hogan, and then I'm left with 4. You're left with 4. And then we've got Chris 2, which yeah, all right, we've got it. There you go. That's how maths work. That's brilliant. So now we've got to work it out into the 10, and we've got Eddie Ray, Vader Cactus, Pillman versus Luger. I think 10 Chamber of Horrors because that can go. Let's work this out. What should be the fourth match after Pillman Luger? We've got Raven Jericho, Rhodes Austin, Malenko Mysterio.
We got Nasty Boys. Oh no, we didn't have Nasty Boys Steiner, did we? That didn't make the cut.
No,
Not a great look for the tag wrestling here in this.
No, there's not, is it? Yeah. So we've watching WWE programming for the last 20 years, so that's what we think about tag team wrestling. That's a problem. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm not going to do it. No, we've got to do a 10. I can't give up now. I've started already. Come on.
It sort of defeats the objective of a top 10 if we don't do a top 10, doesn't it?
I literally just thought that as I said it. I thought, no, we'll leave it as that. But yeah, all right, let's get it. Right, so we've got Chamber of Horrors 10, and then we've got Raven Jericho, Rhodes Austin, Malenko Mysterio. So Bulldog Regal.
Let's
Bulldog
go
Regal?
Raven Jericho 9.
This is exciting. Everybody listen at home. Bated breath. We don't know where we're going to go. This is podcasting.
You've edited out the 4 hours of deliberation we had.
Yes. Right, so we've got Bulldog Regal. Have I put Bulldog Regal in there? No. Right, where's Bulldog Regal? Where should we put that? Should it go up top, near the bottom, or in the middle?
I'm pushing it up top. I think it was exactly what I was looking for from that match. It did not disappoint me in any way.
Was it better than Mysterio versus Malenko?
Probably not.
Right, okay. And that works that one out then. So we've got two more places. We've got number 6 and number 7. I can't read my own writing now, which is going to go well. Our last two matches are...
2 places, 8 matches.
We've got Rhodes and Austin. I have no idea. Hang on. We've got Rhodes and Austin. And we've got... Oh, we'll put the Steiners and the Nasties in. Go on. Bit of tag team wrestling.
Do it.
So, Steiners, Nasty. And then the last match. Rhodes, Austin. Yeah. See how easy we worked as a well-oiled team there to get all that done. Right. So, top 10. See, we said we're going to do it. We're going to do the top 10 of Halloween Havoc matches.
Seamless.
It is just boom, boom, boom. You can tell I've been doing this for 5 years, can't you guys? So you really can. We've got a number 10, our top 10. Number 10, we've got the Chamber of Horrors. At number 9, Raven versus Chris Jericho. Number 8, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, still cage match. Number 7, the Steiners versus the Nasty Boys. Number 6, Rhodes versus... Number 5, Bulldog versus Regal. Number 4, Mysterio versus Malenko. Number 3, Pillman versus Luger. Number 2, Vader versus Jack. And at number 1, the greatest Halloween Havoc, the top Halloween Havoc match of all time, is Eddie versus Rey Mysterio. What do you guys think?
Very happy with that list.
Yeah, I would be happy to spend the $35.95 or whatever it costs for the American pay-per-view.
I think without doubt, I think we worked well to get that done. And like I said, we've worked it out and we've got our top 10. So this is the official list. If anybody wants to know the official top 10 list of Halloween Havoc, we have just done it now on the podcast. And we talk about Halloween Havoc. Yeah, it's history in the making. History, I can feel it. It's like the whatever. It's like a handshake across the world. It is. But like we say, don't forget Halloween Havoc has had some great matches, and Halloween Havoc, NXT's Halloween Havoc comes at the end of the month. That should be very interesting. So that is it for today's episode then. Don't forget we're across all social media. We're at the WNR podcast. And I'll just let you plug your Twitter for a second.
At Select Match Pod.
Yeah, honestly, check them out. They really are worth it, without a doubt.
We normally get in arguments with wrestling fans about all sorts of stuff. So come and have a go.
Yeah, it's like, they think Bret Hart is overrated. So go and have a word.
No. I'm going to distance Chris from this from that comment. That was all me, but yeah.
Yeah, but then again, everyone's just heard my list for top Halloween Havoc matches. So.
That is true.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't think any of us have come out of here, shining after this. But I'm at the WNRJR. We're also on Facebook, WNR Podcast, and Instagram, across all the Google platforms. Send us an email, the WNR Podcast at gmail.com. Our follower of the week, the WNR follower, is Rockstar L. We're also on YouTube, where you can listen to the podcast same time as they go up in other places like SoundCloud on your phone, also Stitcher and iTunes, where you can download, subscribe, rate, and review there. So that is it. But that's not the end collaboration, is it?
It certainly is not. So we talked about how our last series was Hell in a Cell, and what's going to happen in the coming weeks, so we've timed this particularly badly, is there's going to be a Hell in a Cell pay-per-view coming to WWE. So what we're going to do is a nice review show to basically go through the results, our thoughts, and our highlights from the upcoming Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. So look forward to that one. I'm actually really excited for the way that they're building the Hell in a Cell matches for this year's Hell in a Cell. Unlike, I mentioned it when we were recording the episode, but previously they have basically just thrown people together because it's Hell in a Cell, whereas they're actually building feuds towards Hell in a Cell matches this year. So I think it's going to be a really good show.
Yeah, I cannot wait to do it, you guys.
Really good show.
Yeah, like I said, it's been really fun today. You guys got great sense of humour as well, and of course with the Hell in a Cell, we'll bring predictions and we'll bring the polls up as well across social media. You can check all them out, and like I said, the review will be just after this one. So that is it. I hope you guys have enjoyed yourself.
Yeah, had a lovely time. Thank you very much for having us.
It's been great. Thank you very much.
No problems, guys. Well, just like to thank you for joining me and thank everybody else for listening. Cheers, everybody, and bye.